The heavy door clicked shut behind me, muffling the wildness of the forest. My boots echoed on the smooth stone as I entered the headquarters again. The receptionist already watching, with that knowing, unnerving calm. "Well done," they said, sliding a new crate towards me with effortless grace. "Time to choose money or artifacts." This time I hesitated. My mind flicked back to the forest, to the surge of danger, and the creature's talons so close to my throat. No amount of cash could protect me from that. I needed tools, weapons, secrets. "Artifacts," I said. The crate opened with a whisper of ancient hinges. Inside were 3 items. A silver-ringed stone that radiated strength, a swirling black vial with a cold, magnetic aura, and a delicate ring that shimmered with a strange energy. The receptionist's voice followed each one like a spell being cast. The stone of vitality, unlimited endurance, and physical resilience. I tucked it into my belt pouch. The ring of insight. See what others miss. Feel what they hide. Unlimited use. If you can handle the truths it reveals. I slid it onto my finger and felt the world sharpen around me. "And this, the vial of eclipses," they paused. "Use it once. It'll let you command shadows and illusions. But for 15 minutes only. And the consequences: paranoia, trust unraveling. That's just as long." I held it, weary, mesmerized by the swirling darkness within. With my items claimed, I stepped away from the desk, but paused. Curiosity tugged at me. "What about the shops?" The receptionist gave a slow smile. "Ah, yes. Marketplace welcomes you." What followed felt like a dream stitched in logic. I visited every shop in the realm. At the Mystic Imperium, I picked up an ambrosia fruit, said to awaken dormant vitality. From the arcane atelier, I bought a shadow cloak and an enchanted jacket that adjusted to the weather. Practical enchantments that looked just as dark and elegant as I liked. At the armory, I added whisper boots, which made my footsteps silent, and warmth-weaved socks for comfort on the coldest nights. I considered the Ether Compass at the Tech Haven, but the guidance app on my mysterious phone made it unnecessary. Still, the strange tech there intrigued me. Tools for bending perception and slipping through space. Back at the Mystic Imperium, I also spotted 2 potions. The Potion of Tranquility and the Draught of Insight, each lasting an hour, each one a small teeter to calm or clarity when I might need it most. They weren't infinite, but neither was my peace of mind. Afterwards, I returned to the front desk. The receptionist raised an eyebrow. "Spent wisely?" "I think so," I replied. "Good, but a warning," they added, more serious now. "That money we gave you, it's not traceable on the human plane. It'll raise suspicion, start a small business, have a cover, or spend it here where no one will ask questions." I nodded. I'd already been careful. Essentials first. No flashy moves. I wasn't ready to risk it all just yet. And now, here I am again, sitting in the quiet of my temporary apartment, ring pulsing on my hand, the fruit cooling in the fridge, the cloak folded on a chair like it's waiting to be worn. My phone is silent for now, but I know how this works. The next call is coming, and I'll be ready. The rest of the week passed in a haze of strange peace. For the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't chasing bills or trying to pull myself out of some pit. I had food in the fridge, silence I chose, time that was mine. I took long walks in the rain, cloaked in shadows that never clung to me. My whisper boots let me drift through the streets unnoticed, the city moving around me like I was a ghost. The enchanted jacket kept me warm, even when the wind turned bitter, adjusting its weight and warmth with each shift of the air. I read old books by candlelight, studied the symbols etched into the ring of insight, and occasionally just sat in stillness, letting the fear inside me soften into something quieter. But even as I breathed slower, ate better, and let myself rest, I never truly relaxed. The phone sat on the kitchen counter, screen dark, but its presence louder than any alarm. And then, on the seventh night, it rang, not with sound, but with vibration, a deep pulsing rhythm that felt like it came from the floor beneath me. I crossed the room and picked it up. Screen shimmered with a single word. Ready? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The phone already knew. It already did. I turned to the fridge and pulled out the ambrosia fruit. Its skin glowed faintly in the dim kitchen light, veins of gold and crimson twisting under its surface. I held it for a moment, my heart thudding. Then I took a bite. The taste hit like a memory I didn't know I had. Sweet, searing, and ancient. My body responded instantly. Heat bloomed in my chest, strength coiled in my muscles, and the mind sharpened like a blade. I felt clear, alive, whole. The phone chimed again. Delivery incoming. This one moves. I slipped on the cloak, grabbed my pouch of artifacts, and slipped out into the night. Whatever this next delivery was, wherever it took me, I was ready to meet it with blood in my mouth and the fire in my chest. Let the shadows come. I had teeth now. The city was asleep, but I wasn't. I moved like a whisper through the streets, each footstep muted by the whisper boots. My shadow cloak swaying with every turn. The ambrosia fruit coursed through me, its energy still burning beneath my skin, like coals in the belly of a dying star. My phone guided me, the screen glowing faintly with a pulsing arrow. No address, no map, just instinct and direction, like it knew the streets better than I ever could. It led me to a train yard. Rusted metal skeletons lay under a bruised sky, moonlit glinting off the rails like silver knives. I stopped just beyond the fence, heart steady but sharp. This was the place. The package was waiting for me on the back of a broken down boxcar, wrapped in leather, stitched with red thread that pulsed faintly. Alive, almost. My phone buzzed the moment I picked it up. Keep moving, it's following. I didn't pause to ask what. I ran. The air shifted behind me. Wrong. Heavy. I could hear it. A scraping sound. Rhythmic and wet. It wasn't footsteps. It was something dragging itself forward. Something fast. I ducked under train cars and leapt gravel piles. The stone of vitality burned hot against my side, strength surging through my limbs, keeping my stride sure. But still, it was close, too close. I needed to disappear. Without hesitation, I put the vial of eclipses from my pouch. Swirling black mist inside roared the moment I uncorked it, spilling into the air like smoke with intent. Shadows wrapped around me, twisting, forming duplicates and illusions, dozens of me sprinting in every direction. For a moment, that creature faltered unsure, and in that sliver of hesitation, I vanished. I found cover in an abandoned storage container, breathing hard, pulse thunderous. The vial's power still cloaked me, but I could feel its cost sinking in. Paranoia, a creeping sense of dread, like eyes behind every wall. I hugged the package to my chest and waited, counting slow, deliberate breaths until the 15th minute mark passed and the fear lifted like a storm breaking. When I emerged, the creature was gone, or maybe just waiting. I didn't stop. I delivered the package deep beneath the city, into a doorway, carved into the side of a subway tunnel. A voice from the dark took it without thanks, without a face. At the headquarters, I didn't speak. The receptionist just looked at me, quietly impressed, and slid a new box across the desk. "Next time," they said. "Don't waste the vial." I didn't answer. I wouldn't need to. I earned rest. And next time, I wouldn't be running. I'd be hunting. "Go on," the receptionist murmured, eyes glinting like wet ink. I opened the box. The first item lay on black velvet, a silver coin of binding, one side engraved with my own face, in miniature, unnerving perfect. The other side? Blank? For now. "That coin," the receptionist said, "is your will, made metal. If someone owes you by blood, by vow, or by fear, flip the coin. Their name will burn into it, and they'll feel your pull, no matter where they run. But be warned, binding goes both ways." I nodded once, then lifted the next object, a vial of pitch-black liquid that shimmered faintly, like mercury. "The tincture of the hollow voice," the receptionist continued. "Swallow it, and for a brief moment, your voice will become a key. You'll speak in a tongue older than obedience, something that makes creatures kneel before they know why. Use it wisely. Use it once." I turned the vial in my hand, its contents thick, slow-moving, hungry. And then, nestled deep in the final fold of fabric, I found the book. It throbbed faintly when I touched it, bound in gray leather that felt almost alive. It was warm, like skin left too long in the sun. Etched on the cover, a single sigil I didn't recognize and yet somehow understood. "The Graven Index," the receptionist whispered, almost reverently. "Not spells, not instructions, just names, connections, entities. Across the veil, each waiting to be called. Some will teach, some will test, some will change you." I carried the book to a quiet table in the back of the hall. The walls here were lined with glass cases, forgotten weapons, bones, broken mirrors. None of them moved as I sat down. I opened the Graven Index. First page was blank. The second, inked in a scrawling, shifting script that flickered between languages. I whispered aloud, almost without thinking, "Who answers first?" Page trembled slowly. Letters began to burn into the parchment, like a ritual carving itself into flesh. Aether and Vex, the Lantern Mall, Watcher of Crossroads, Whisper in Ash, knows the paths you've forgotten, and the ones no one's dared to walk. Burn my name with candle smoke, and I will find you. Below the name, a symbol appeared, a lantern split down the middle, its flame flickering sideways, like wind in reverse. The room felt colder now, not physically, but in the way that shadows seem to press closer when you're being watched. I ran my thumb across the sigil on the page. The edges were sharp, the ink still warm. This wasn't just information. It was contact, consent. I leaned back in the chair, the Graven Index resting open before me. In my bag, I had a candle, plain wax, nothing enchanted. That didn't seem to matter. The moment I struck a match, the flame caught like it had been waiting its whole life for me. I whispered the name, Aether, Vex. The smoke curled up into the air, then turned. It bent against the walls of the room and slithered into the book. The sigil pulsed. The candle guttered violently, and then I heard it. A whisper, not through my ears, but in the hollow behind my heart. You are your sunlight's alive. The voice came from every direction. A male voice, maybe, or a female one, later in static, or neither. It didn't matter. It knew me. You opened the index. You opened yourself. I swallowed and sat straighter. I want to know the path I've lost, the ones no one walks. There was silence, and then not all doors are shut because they're locked. Some are shut because they should be forgotten. I felt something tighten behind my ribs. The candle flickered once more, and then the smoke rose up into a shape, a broken compass. Follow this, I asked. No. Where it's in your mind. When you're lost, let it tilt. The smoke curled inward and vanished. The Graven Index closed itself with a sigh. The candle was gone, nothing but a small pool of wax, shaped like a mouth frozen in a scream. I sat in the dark corner of the hall, heart steady, thoughts racing. I had called something ancient, and it had answered. The paths ahead would no longer be random. It'd be chosen for me or against me. But either way, I was no longer walking alone. The book was warm in my hands. Something far away had just turned to look at me, and I think it smiled. I left the book shut, its weight more than leather and pages. It pulsed faintly in my satchel, like something sleeping just beneath the surface, dreaming of roads that didn't yet exist, and maybe of me walking them. Outside, the sky had shifted, not in time. There was still night overhead, but in tone, like the stars, had backed away a few inches, like the city knew what I had done. I didn't go home right away. I wondered. My body moved, but my mind traced the compass made of smoke, spinning slowly behind my eyes. Every turn I made felt deliberate and not mine. It led me to the river, black water, a bridge barely lit, and beneath it, something small. A child? No. Too still. Too old. I crouched. A figure sat by the bank, wrapped in what looked like a patchwork shawl. When I got closer, I realized the shawl was made of something stranger. Pages, torn from dozens of books, notes, letters, maps. The figure raised its hand, eyes like polished coal. No reflection, no fear. You carry his mark, it said, voice brittle as dry leaves. Lantern Mall. That means you're walking something crooked. I didn't speak, just nodded. It gestured to the bundle beside it, an object wrapped in cloth, soaked through with river silt. For you. He said you need this. I opened it. Inside, a piece of chalk, black as void, wrapped in a slip of paper with 5 words burned into it. Draw only what you mean. The figure vanished the moment I blinked. The city exhaled around me, and I understood. I wasn't just on a path. I was building it, step by step, name by name, curse by curse. And now I had a pencil. I held the chalk between my fingers. It was cold, colder than the riverbank, colder than the night. It didn't feel like something meant to draw. It felt like something meant to open. Back at my apartment, I cleared a space on the floor. The candles were already lit. Habit now. The shadows on the wall leaned in as I laid the chalk down beside me. I opened the slip of paper again. Draw only what you mean. It echoed like a warning or a dare. I let my hand move, not with thought, but with instinct. I didn't try to picture anything. I let the chalk speak to the voice still echoing in my chest. From the Graven Index, the path, the whisper, the memory of Atherin vexes breath on my soul. Lines formed, curved like bone, sharp like broken glass. A door, but not a physical one. It looked like the outline of a place I'd dream of once. Maybe when I was a child. Maybe in another life. The moment the final mark connected, the air went still. Then the floor shifted. The symbol glowed faintly, not with light, but with depth, as if the floor had become shallow water, and I was seeing down into it. I couldn't hear the city anymore, not the buzz of power lines, not the dripping of my sink, just the slow, rhythmic hum of something waiting. The phone on my computer vibrated. I crossed the room. Do not enter yet. The screen read, something is coming through. Behind me, the drawn sigil breathed. Not in, out, like it was exhaling something into my apartment. I turned. A figure was raising from the chalk. A shape of black smoke and bone, cloaked in memory, eyes burning with the same flicker as the lantern mark in the Graven Index. Not a threat, not a friend. The guide said nothing, just pointed to the chalk still in my hand, and then to the wall beside me. Another canvas? Another choice? Another door? The paths weren't waiting. They were here. And now, so was I. The guide, if that's what it was, stood in silence, its shape barely holding together, like it was stitched from smoke and expectation. Its hand remained raised, finger aimed at the wall, like a command, carved in stillness. I turned to face the blank space. The chalk pulsed faintly in my fingers, not glowing but alive, in that way certain dreams are, bright even behind closed eyes. I didn't hesitate. I pressed it to the wall. This time I didn't draw a door. I drew a symbol, not one I knew consciously. It came from somewhere between breath and blood. A sigil of convergence. It looked like a lantern impaled on a thorn, flanked by two circles, one cracked, one whole. The moment the chalk lifted, the wall quivered, it peeled, stone dissolved like dust caught in reverse wind, revealing not a passage, but a window. Through it I saw something vast, too vast, a field of black flowers, growing upside down, stars blooming in the dirt. Above it, a staircase spiraling into nothing, and on it, figures, dozens, hundreds, all walking slowly, deliberately, climbing towards what? I couldn't say. Behind me, the guide shifted. You see now. It rasped, its voice, the sound of parchment tearing. The Graven Index doesn't tell you who you are. It tells you who remembers you. What am I looking at? I asked. The figure's head tilted, impossibly slow. Every choice you've already made, every shadow that knows your name. I stared longer. One of the figures turned its head, not towards the window, towards me. I stumbled back. The connection snapped. The wall sealed. The chalk crumbled to dust. But the figure was still there, not behind me. Its whisper crawled across the room. Another delivery awaits, but this time You're not bringing the package. You are the key. The phone buzzed again. I turned to check it. Retrieve what was lost from them. No name. Just 3 claw marks burned into the message. I looked back to the shadowy guide, but it was gone. Only the air trembled where it had stood, and my hand still tingled with chalk and fate. The air hung heavy with silence, thick, anticipatory, like the moment just before thunder breaks. The chalk was gone, the guide had vanished, but something lingered, not just presence, direction. I grabbed the Graven Index and opened it with fingers still dusted white. The pages flipped on their own, as if sensing the urgency, until they landed on something freshly inked. 3 claw marks carved into the parchment. No name, no title, just a smear of something darker than ink. The page pulsed once and bled. The drops didn't fall, they slid upwards, off the page, and into the room. They twisted midair, forming a jagged line that pointed west, toward the outskirts of the city, the industrial ruins, forgotten territory. I packed quickly, ring of insight on my finger, stone of utility tucked tight against my ribs, tincture of hollow voice in its padded case, coin of binding warm in my pocket, like it already knew it might be needed, and the Graven Index, cradled in cloth, whispering softly, even when closed. The city blurred past me in silence. It was late, late enough that the world had thinned. I walked between streetlights that flickered out as I passed, as if even the electricity was holding its breath. By the time I reached the outskirts, the stars had vanished. Cloudless sky, no light, only the husk of a warehouse crouched at the end of a fractured road. I stepped inside. It smelled of rust, old rain, and salt. Not sea salt. Tears. The darkness inside wasn't just absence. It was layered, folded, alive. Shapes moved between the pillars, tall, spindly, half there. Not creatures, not ghosts. Watchers. They turned as I passed, but didn't approach, just observed. At the center of the floor was a circle of shattered mirrors, their edges scored, their surfaces fogged, and lying in the middle, a small box, wooden, bound in red string, a surface carved with symbols I didn't know, but recognized. I stepped into the mirror circle, and every fragment suddenly showed me, not as I was, as I could have been. Broken versions, bitter, empty, forgotten. One of them was dead. The reflections whispered, "Take it, become us." But another voice came, clearer, stronger than mine. "Not today." I knelt, picked up the box. It was cold, and then the shadows moved. The watchers turned inward, circling. From the walls came a sound, chittering like teeth grinding against steel. The box grew heavier. Whatever was inside wasn't dormant anymore. I stepped back out of the circle, and the moment I crossed the edge, the watchers collapsed like empty cloaks. Silence gone. I didn't wait. I ran, not from fear, from purpose. Whatever I had retrieved, it wasn't a delivery. It was a question. And now the city, the phone, the entities, even the Graven Index would be waiting for my answer. Back in my apartment, I set the box on the table. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I looked at the chalk dust still clinging to my fingers, and I whispered into the quiet, "I'm listening." Back in my apartment, the box sat like a sealed heartbeat, silent but full of tension. I hadn't opened it, not yet. There's a rhythm to things like this. Open it too soon, and the meaning slips out the air. Way too long, and you forget why you ever picked it up. I looked down at the crumpled paper that had come with the black chalk. 5 words, now etched into memory. Draw only what you use. It made more sense now. Not what you mean, too vague, too abstract. What you use, what you wield, what you become. That's what the magic listens for. I turned from the box, chalk still resting in a glass dish like a relic. The sigil I'd drawn on the floor earlier had faded, but not fully. The line shimmered faintly under the dim light, like veins beneath skin. The Graven Index lay open again, turned to a blank page that no longer was. A new name had appeared. No ink, just indentations, like someone had carved it into the paper from the other side. Lahiriv, the answer bound. A being of questions refused. It does not answer, it reflects. Show it your unspoken, and it may give you what you've used without knowing. There was no sigil, just a single looping curve at the corner of the page. A tear? A thread? I couldn't tell, and yet I felt seen. The room seemed to hum, barely, like the old apartment walls had taken a breath. I rose and walked to the mirror, the one cracked at the edges from when I first moved in. My reflection stared back, but the shadows behind it weren't mine. Something shifted just behind my image. The box on the table rattled once, then stopped. The next move was mine, and this time chalk would only answer what I was ready to use. So I picked it up, and I began to draw. The chalk slid across the floor, whispering like bone over silk. This time, I didn't drift. I didn't let instinct lead. I was deliberate. Draw only what you use. So I drew a lock, not a key. A lock, ancient in shape, brutal in design, spiked around the edges like it didn't want to be opened without pain. I could feel the line between creation and invocation blurring each stroke, and when I finished, the sigil breathed again. The apartment dimmed, not the lights. They were still lit, but everything dimmed, like the shadows leaned in closer. Listening, the box on the table groaned, wooden fiber shifting, adjusting. Then the room went silent, not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that presses into your ears and lungs, demanding attention, daring you to speak. The sigil on the floor cracked from within. The chalk lines, a slit tore open, not into the ground, but into the air, like someone had cut reality with a scalpel and peeled it back. And from that wound, a figure stepped through, not entirely there, smoke and shape, tall, draped in something like cloth, but moving like ink in water. No face, no eyes, just presence. Lahariv, he entered bound. It said nothing. It didn't need to, because the moment it looked at me, if you could call it looking, I felt a flood of memory crash through my mind. Everything I'd used that I didn't know I had, the anger I'd swallowed in silence, the fear I'd dressed in sarcasm, the hunger that never came from food. I staggered, breath caught between revelation and nausea. The figure tilted its head. It reflected. It didn't speak. And somehow, that was worse. It raised one long hand and pointed not at me, at the box. The one I had retrieved. The one I hadn't dared open. Then, without a sound, it stepped backwards into the wound in the air and was gone. The sigil burned ash, and I was alone again. But now I understood. The lock I'd drawn wasn't to keep something out. It was to keep me from opening something too soon. Now I had the reflection. Now I could face what was inside. I walked to the table. My hand hovered over the box. No more waiting. I broke the red string and lifted the lid. What I saw inside didn't scream. It whispered my name in my voice and smiled. It smiled like it had been waiting for me, not for hours or days, but lifetimes. The thing in the box wasn't a creature, wasn't even an object in the way most people would understand. It was a shape, flickering like light beneath water, and it wore my face. Not perfectly, no. This version of me was older somehow, but not in years. Weather-bound by knowledge I hadn't earned yet. Its eyes were hollow, not from emptiness, but because they were too full, like staring into a well that reflected nothing but your own forgotten thoughts. It whispered again, my name, my voice, but lower, more deliberate, the way I might say it if I were savoring the sound. It lifted a hand and mirrored me. I hadn't moved, but it was already doing it perfectly. I reached into the box, every instinct screaming not to, but I knew the rules now. Draw only what you use, face what you are. My fingers met something cold, not flesh, not wood. Glass? No, thinner, a barrier almost. Then it shattered. Not the box, not the room, me.